Welcome back, guys. It's Monday night, and we are I'm in Milan, I'm settled, I'm back in my normal life, and we are ready to kick off the Monday night Euro review show once again. And I'm joined by my good friends, Adam and Andy. How are we doing, boys?
All good?
Thank you.
Good to have you here. How was your weekend? I'm going to start with Adam. How was your weekend? How did Wickham get on? I'll be honest.
We drew 1-1 in the end. A very kind of, I suppose, one of those games where you kind of expected the worst after one of our players got sent off after 10 minutes. So you're thinking, it's going to be a hard kind of result to get anything out of it. But yeah, we did really well considering the circumstances. So we took the lead, I think it was 42nd minute. So weren't expecting it, but our great player, Anis Memesi, as we call him, just dribbling for fun and scoring. He's definitely going to be in the championship at some point. But yeah, no, apart from that though, mate, really good weekend. Chilled out one as I was looking after our neighbour's dog who have been away, but they've collected it. So it should be a silent house now. So
a bit calmer in the house now.
Looking forward to a podcast talking about the weekend's results.
Beautiful. And Andy, apart from the football, we're going to get there. How was your weekend? What did you get up to?
I just did not very much really. Played an awful lot of Football Manager.
Good work.
That was successful, as I was saying offline. Just chilled really. So I'm quite happy.
Yeah, it was definitely a contrasting weekend. Well, ultimately, for me, all of my teams lost. So Crew lost. We were 1-0 up and then lost 2-1 at home to Stevenage. And their manager, Steve Evans. Seeing that guy happy is never, ever a good thing. Then, of course, Arsenal lost, of course. And Inter lost. And then Roma got done 4-0. I was like, yeah, it's definitely not my weekend. But it was still good. I got to meet up with Tommy and a couple of mates here to go and see the Milan derby. I think the derby very much takes a kind of sideshow, if you know what I mean, to just hanging out. And once the game was done, I think I got home at 4:00 in the morning. It turned into quite a big one. So today was a bit of a ropey morning, to say the least, or a ropey day.
School night as well. That's dodgy territory. That
it was a big one. All I vaguely remember walking home, and the missus was like, "You came in and you were singing." With the music in your headphones. I was like, I apologize. I'm so sorry. But I should also say hello to our viewers. Guys, it's great to have you back. As always, comment, chuck your questions in the box, and we will try and impart our wisdom onto you. And we'll try and get you involved in the show. But to start with, we're going to have to go to the Premier League, and we're going to try and be super quick about it because I don't want to talk about it that much. But we need to talk about Manchester United 3, Arsenal 1. Now, we're going to have both perspectives here. Andy, let's go. What did you think of the game? And then, Adam, I'll get your neutral look at it.
Yeah.
I thought it was a really good game of football, actually. I think, the United Arsenal games aren't what they used to be. We all remember the Kid of the Era days. That was probably, the peak of that kind of rivalry. But I feel it's been the first time in a long time where both teams, are currently playing well. They're building towards something, and they both have a bit of purpose. I feel like it was quite nice for both teams to come into the game on a decent run of form. Obviously, Arsenal had won their first 5. United had got 3 under belt to clearly beat Liverpool. And the game kind of went sort of how I expected it to, really. You look at Arsenal, they're good in possession. They've got lots of really neat and tidy technical players. People like, Odegaard embodies that kind of what Arteta's trying to build in midfield. So, yeah, and obviously with the first half, felt like Jesus, really gave the back four a bit of a hard time. Like they were, struggling to cope. Saka was getting a bit of a joy on the left-hand side. So I was a little bit worried, to be perfectly honest. But yeah, I think with United, we put together some really, really good counter attacks. I think having obviously it was a good decision to start Anthony, given Elanga had started the previous couple of games. Nothing against Anthony Elanga, but clearly Anthony is a level above in a position that we needed that kind of player. And we've not really had somebody who, sort of cuts in from the right and gives that kind of presence. I mean, there was a little bit where he looked like he got himself into a cul-de-sac did a little flick straight out onto Dallo, and that's little things like that I'm looking forward to seeing a bit more often. So,
I was
yeah.
I was really impressed with Anthony. I thought he was. You can tell that he knows how Ten Hag wants to play, and he just played that way. And he caused us all sorts of problems. I was like, God, this guy is going to like absolutely kill defenses. I think Ramsdale genuinely thought he was right-footed for that first goal and just didn't know he was left-footed. He kind of went the wrong way. It wasn't great goalkeeping, but it was a great finish. Adam, how did you see it? And then I'm going to give my kind of quick view on it.
Yeah, I found it kind of very contrasting in terms of styles, and maybe I was surprised at Ten Hag's approach with Man United. Certainly for the first 10 minutes, you saw the intent from Man United getting into Arsenal's faces, especially into that half, and I found that quite intriguing. They seem to be playing a lot of the ball through the middle, which was kind of a surprise for me as well. On the flip side, you saw obviously Arsenal were trying to go down the left-hand side, so Dalot's right-hand side. So they were clearly targeting him. Martinelli, every time on his pace, he was just having Dalot every time. But that said, obviously, I think it seemed to be certain moments against the run of play that really dictated the match, how it went about. In particular, obviously, we're talking about the first goal that was disallowed. That obviously then changed how maybe Man United approached it. I thought Eriksen had a superb match. I thought
he was
see
fantastic.
the role he's playing for Man United, and you could argue he's the bargain of the season with the fact that he's a free transfer. But that said, I think it was a really solid performance by Man United. I think he surprised a lot of maybe people's perceptions of Man United, and was really pleased for Rashford. I know it's no good for you, Ruairi, but I mean, his performance was really good. Great to see the lad get a bit of confidence. But that said, for Arsenal's point of view as well, just quickly before I let you talk, I thought they were a bit disappointed. I thought they was expecting a bit more. I certainly was surprised to see Zinchenko actually turn up. I thought he was going to be out for another match. And Lokonga, I thought he really did struggle in this match. It has to be said. So, get your thoughts.
No, Lokonga's a difficult one because he's not a defensive player. He isn't, and he's being asked to perform a role that isn't the type of player he is. What he's good at, he did well. Like, I think his passing was good. He was able to, he kind of press resistant. He was able to keep control of the ball, keep the tempo, but he's not a defensive-minded player. Ultimately, our lack of action on deadline day has meant that he's playing in a role that he's not familiar with. But I think you said in the group chat while we were watching the game, just put Zinchenko in there and bring Tierney on and just have a bit more stability. Because I think when Arteta made that triple substitution as well, it just didn't work. The only player that I thought came on and did well was Fabio Vieira. Showed some real moments where I was like, okay, this guy, he's got an eye for a pass, had a few shots. He made a mistake, but then he was the first one to go back and clean it up. I think the triple substitution didn't work. With Rashford, I would much rather see Rashford score 2 against us than Ronaldo, for example. Right? I'm really happy to see Rashford obviously enjoying his football again. Rashford, when he's got space to run into, is terrifying. He's just, if he can get his head up again and get that form, not only United, but England could have a great striker again. I really do like Rashford. You know just how lovely a bloke he is. And he has now 4 goals and 4 assists against us, I think. He always scores against us. But yeah, fantastic player. I thought my reaction usually when we lose to United is I'm angry. This game, I wasn't angry. I was just oh, okay, shit happens. I was we played well. On a different day, we win. We didn't win. And I feel like watching Arsenal all these years against the big teams getting embarrassed in games, I just appreciate not getting embarrassed now and just being okay, we competed. We didn't quite get there, but next time we'll get there. And I think we played well enough to get something. The Ødegaard goal, it was a foul, but then throughout other points during the match, there were fouls exactly the same that weren't called. Now, what we're going to talk about is consistency in VAR. So that's only a foul if it leads to a goal. Because if it's in a run of play, 9 times out of 10, the ref just says play on, right? It's a soft foul. There was other instances in that game where it wasn't called. And it's just I get it, it's a foul, but then call all of them, right? Because it seems like it's only a foul once the ball goes into the back of the net. But that's my tiny rant. They were right to chalk it off. I just want consistency. And McTominay to get some kind of repercussion for the wrestler stroke footballer that he is. I don't know what it is he does, but he seems to get away with the first 5 tackles before he gets booked. But I think we're done with anything to add, Andy, before we move on to United Arsenal.
I mean, I was just looking at some of the comments. To be fair, I think Monday Sportive, hello. What do Man United do with Maguire and Ronaldo? And yeah, you know what? I thought it was just me being a little bit overly anxious because Maguire came on, and I was literally sat there to myself thinking, no, this ain't the best idea in the world. Like, just for the last 10 minutes, you don't need to be changing things up in centre of defence. And
I was quite happy. I was,
well, of course,
happy.
Yeah. But you know, a minute after he came on, he gave away a yellow card. He could have feasibly given away a penalty in a different steps. I think the only thing that saved that him in that case is that, you know, the other player had nowhere near control of the ball.
Yeah.
So it's not like, it was Nketiah. I forgot. It was Nketiah. He didn't have control of the ball, nor did Maguire nor Fez. It just went out of play. So it's just like in the corner where you got 2 people wrestling for it. But either way, it just seemed a little bit clumsy and ungainly. And I know it kind of feels like a bit of a pile on, and I do want it to get back to his form. But if you go back to last season, United under Solskjaer, where we started the season, had a back 4 of Wan-Bissaka, Lindelof, Maguire, and Luke Shaw. All of them have now been replaced in what I'd assume is going to be the starting 11. I feel much, much more secure with that starting 11. Even Dallow's improvement has been great to see. Like, he had a bit of a difficult start to this game, but he kept his head up. He started getting a little bit tighter, and as the game went on, started to come out quite well. Same with Mason. I think, Rafael Varane is an example. Like, he probably due to fitness, but he was probably criminally underused. Last season.
Well, last season he hardly got a sniff, did he? And it was just injuries, I think. But I was really impressed with Malacia, even though Saka gave him a hell of a time.
Oh yeah,
Saka really had a great game, but I was impressed with Malacia, I'm not sure.
Yeah,
and I think Dallo, all I see is people slagging him off, and I'm like, every time I watch him, I'm like, this guy's pretty good.
Last season, he was probably worth slagging off North fans. He was absolutely woeful. And I think, just thinking of the other quote to Maguire about, obviously, with De Gea behind him. Yeah, I think ultimately Ten Hag's not going to be able to play the football he wants and have De Gea in goal. But unfortunately, due to, I guess, a self-induced situation where they've arguably let a better goalkeeper go out on loan, and they've brought in Martin Dubravka on deadline day. Whether he'll get game time or not, I don't know. Yeah. It's a simple answer to that one, but he's got 1 year left on his contract. He's on $300,000 a week. So I think whether we like it or not, he's going to be there. And I think
there's an upgrade in the pipeline, though. That, like, I think De Gea, by next summer you get a new goalkeeper. I'm pretty
100%.
sure,
and I think
pretty sure.
And I think just a last shout out to Christian Eriksen, because he's it turns out he is what we thought Paul Pogba would be. He doesn't need funnily enough, Christian Eriksen doesn't need a world-class defensive midfielder to unlock him. He just drops deep. He knows where to take the ball, knows where to release it. He's a little bit more subtle than perhaps Fernandes is, who's direct all the time. He gives a bit of subtlety to the play, and he's got.
Well, I know for a fact that the Inter fans are absolutely gutted he couldn't play in Serie A. Like, they are gutted. He is still an incredible player, and United have done great business getting him there. Like, absolutely no doubt. But I realise we're now 15 minutes in, so that's it. We're cutting off.
That's it.
We're going into the next game. Adam, I'm going to let you choose. Which game are we going to next?
Let's go to Chelsea.
Now, I am not a West Ham fan, right? And I was watching the highlights of this game, and my head got hot at the end. My head got really hot. I was genuinely starting to get wound up. And then to wind myself up even more, I went and watched Tuchel's post-match conference. This is a man who was complaining about the Cucurella thing 2 weeks ago, a week ago, about how VAR didn't go his way. And he watches that clip and says that it was definitely a foul. VAR of 100% got it right. Now, either Either you are completely honest with these things, or your complaints don't sound sincere, right? I can't take your complaints sincerely if you're going to just lie to everyone's face when it suits you. I was really, really disappointed with Tuchel in that post-match conference. I thought he was better than that. I honestly thought he was better than that. Just how bad was that decision? Adam, I'm going to go to you first. I could not believe it.
Yeah, it was terrible. Absolutely terrible. And I think they're looking for something. It's a bit like the scenario we've got at Man United to an extent, but this was more obvious that they were trying to search for something just to chalk it off. And I think what the frustration is there is it was really innocuous. There was nothing that in that scenario, if that was lower league, that would have just been played on and that's
yeah.
There would definitely be no issue with that. I feel really frustrated for West Ham fans because I was speaking to Tom, fan of the show as well, and he says it's not the first time that's happened to West Ham this season. So he's completely on this train where he's trying it right now, but there doesn't seem to be any recompensation for this decision because they've admitted since that there's potentially some errors. They're going to have an independent adjudicator look at this as well as a number of VAR decisions this weekend. It was interesting. We saw the contrast in Michael Oliver for the Nottingham Forest one, where he just stuck with his decision, which was interesting. But looking at this instance, definitely shouldn't have been chalked off. And I feel sorry for West Ham because they genuinely had a good performance. I felt Chelsea were really poor on this match as well. But pass it to Andy, see what he thinks as well.
Yeah, what did you think about it? I've got a few thoughts that I'm going to jump in afterwards. But what did you think of it? How are your feelings in general towards VAR after this weekend?
I think with VAR, it's I don't really have an issue with VAR itself as a technology. My issue is with the people behind it, the people using it, and how they utilize it. I think it could be a lot more streamlined. Like you shouldn't be sat there waiting for 5 minutes to make a decision. Like you're right. I think they should just put a timer on it. Like you've literally got, instead of this, someone have a look at it, tell the referee to go to the screen. He spends another couple of minutes having a look at it. They should just be like, right, go to the screen, have a chat with it.
If you can't change your mind in a minute, then just stick with the on-field decision. Yeah, like, you don't have to spend hours over it because for the people in the stadium, you've got no clue what's going on. You're just stood there like waiting for the referee to show, like you've got no clue.
Do what we do in rugby. I think that's the thing. It's like I think a lot of people feel there isn't any transparency, there isn't any accountability. So you kind of look every single weekend. There's been mistakes being made left, right, and centre, and they're still back on the field sort of next week. And I think you either need to do what we do in rugby, where they have everyone mic'd up, they have the VAR mic'd up, they have the referees mic'd up, and everyone can see kind of what's going on, why the decisions being made, the thought process behind it, and you could be like, cool. And I think that would either confirm or perhaps show that maybe referees aren't just corrupt; they just need a bit more help. But I think with the West Ham one, Mendy's a lucky boy. I mean, to be honest,
he's a cheat man.
He knew what he was doing.
I remember De Gea doing that a couple of, I think it was last season
against
before.
Arsenal.
Yeah, he just stayed on the floor.
And we scored and we're like, get up, man.
But the referee went, whatever, it just carried on. Whereas in this case, like, he knew he messed up. He came to the ball, he didn't get it. And he just stayed on the floor hoping he'd get something, and he did.
He did. Well, it's got to the point now where fans celebrate the referee going over to the screen because they're going to go with the VAR and they're going to reverse
try and influence it.
So I think it was the Brentford Leeds game. Maybe there was one of the goals that was like goals are VAR checked now, but one of the goals was VAR checked, and literally the second the ref went over to the screen, they were like, because they knew the ref was just going to change his decision and go with what was on the screen. It's like the refs don't even ref the game anymore. I feel like it's just completely being misused, as Andy said, and they are, and like you said earlier, Adam, they're looking for reasons to cancel goals. Like every goal, they're like, right, should that be disallowed? Whereas it should be like, you shouldn't be looking for those faults. You're looking for obvious. That's what everybody said, right? Clear and obvious. That's not what's happening. It feels like every goal now, I'm sure it's the same when you guys watch it on TV. Every goal now, you're like, don't celebrate too much because fuck knows what is going to get called off for, but something will get it called off. Even when Martinelli scored that first goal, I was like, wait, they're going to fight. Oh, they found something. There we go. Good. Okay, everybody calm down.
I mean, it wasn't that hard to find, to be honest, was it?
I don't think it was like an egregious tackle. It wasn't like flying in from the back. But yeah, I think like every goal now, their automatic instinct is like, can we remove this? Like trying to take the joy out of the game. It just, the whole thing is just not being managed well. And I think the apology now to West Ham fans and Villa with the score at City, with the decision at City, it just feels like a bigger insult to fans now. Like, oh yeah, sorry, still no points.
And
so what? Like it's infuriating.
I do feel for them as well, because you see it a lot on Twitter, and I suspect a lot of the match going fans probably feel the same. Is that West Ham fans, Newcastle, they all feel that whenever they play against the top 16, they seem to get a lot of decisions go against them, and a lot of them literally coming out straight up going, it's corruption, it's it's this, it's that, and I think they feel like they don't get the rub of the green, and therefore, like, they're not big fans of VAR in the first place. And
I think
that's where
like
transparency comes in.
Yeah, I feel like the smaller teams never did get the rub of the green, but now it's just even more obvious. Because the decisions are being analysed and scrutinised, and now it's more obvious to see. I feel like United, Arsenal, Chelsea, Liverpool, we always got favourable decisions because we're the bigger teams, because whatever. I think that's always happened. It's just now more obvious because you're spending 20 minutes looking at a decision.
Plus, I go through this cycle every couple of years, right, where we get to like a Euros or a World Cup. You see VAR being used somewhat adequately, and you're like, oh, this is nice.
Well, we've had a comment from Mon Sportif that Serie A doesn't seem to have the same amount of controversies as Premier League.
I think it's the same in Germany as well. Like, I think maybe we just really shit at using VAR.
I think PG Mall or Pigamal, however you say it, really do have a lot of things to look at.
But just on this, Serie A does get controversies. They just don't get picked up because the refereeing standards are just as bad as the Premier Leagues. So it's just the fact that it's not really public. There was many occasions, Rory, last season where certain decisions didn't go certain ways. So I'm a bit like, I know the Premier League has a lot more scrutiny. Equally, Serie A does get it wrong. I think the difference is, though, there's a lot more younger referees and they're given a chance to educate. Whereas here, I don't feel that's probably the same. I feel like Andy said about repercussions, they don't get pulled up on it as much. So maybe that's the learning curve that we should be going through. I don't know if that's the right decision, but certainly there should be a lot more looked at. And again, like we've said, VAR, you slow it down, you can make it look like a foul. Whereas in real time, when it actually happens, that's when the referee is trying to make that decision. I appreciate sometimes referees don't have eyes in the back of their head, so they can't see it from every angle. But that's maybe the way we should be looking. I mean, the Australia example is a really good one where they go, I don't know if you got the right decision there, go back to VAR and have a look at it. I think maybe we should be learning from other places around the world to see how they're operating VAR. And that would make sense for the referees. But again, it's just that clarity. We are using VAR for every goal, it seems, and that ruins the just general atmosphere in the stadiums. So
it does. Yeah, you can't enjoy goals. You can't enjoy goals. You just can't enjoy goals as much anymore. But enough, basta. Enough VAR talk. I'm kind of sick of it. Andy, I'm gonna give you a selection of games to pick from. We've got Brentford 5, Leeds 2, Brighton 5, Leicester 2, Forest 2, Bournemouth 3. Where are we going?
I'm gonna go with Brighton, Leicester.
Ooh, let's do it. This will be a fun one. We get to talk about Brenty Rodgers. Right, Andy, let's go.
I mean, Leicester, we spoke about it in the previous pod, didn't we? We think Leicester City in a bit of trouble. Well, they are in extra trouble.
We can confirm they are in trouble.
They are in trouble.
Yeah. It's not a rumour anymore. It is straight up clear to see like where they're currently at a team. And they're not in a good place because, the manager has obviously been complaining about everything basically. He didn't get the players he wants. The board was this, the board was that. He obviously got a little bit. He probably got caught up in the whole Wesley Fofana thing a bit too much. it feels like a very unhappy camp because you've got a manager that's not happy. He's not going to be able to get the players in. He's got players that probably want to leave Leicester, but they're not being let go. I mean, Fofana had to effectively go on strike to force his move, and I think there's been envious glances at the likes of James Maddison from Newcastle, and I'm pretty sure he's thinking, I can get a pretty decent payday on that one. You got Yuri Tielemans, who seems to be perennially linked with Arsenal year in, year out. Likes of Harvey Barnes as well. I mean, they let their legendary keeper Kasper Schmeichel go.
That's a mad decision. That's such a mad decision.
I mean, I can understand it to an extent that he's been there a decade. He wanted to try something different, so they made that move happen for him because of the status he has at the club. I completely understand that, and to be honest, if I was a club owner, I'd be like, you know what? You've given us 10 years. Go on a free, go where you want and crack on. But you should, at the very, very least, go, right, I need a replacement.
Yeah, you can't just go, right, second choice, third choice, we'll just do that.
I mean, it's a shame because Leicester, literally a year ago, you would have had them down as the embodiment of a well-run club. And, they've built up their facilities, so they're consistent, top 6 or 7 competing teams. So, from that point of view, done really well. But I think this season they've really made quite a few mistakes on and off the pitch. I mean, you had Wilfred Ndidi playing centre back.
He had a shocker of a game,
but that's because he's not. He's not.
He's not a centre back.
Because the centre back they do have, like Soyuncu,
Johnny Evans, wasn't
Soyuncu appears
who's going as well. Soyuncu's off to Galatasaray, right?
I didn't realise he's off to Galatasaray, but that explains why he isn't playing any football at the moment. I mean, he's not been the same since the Euros, to be fair. No. But it just seems like not a very happy camp when they're arguing with each other. No one seems to want to take responsibility. Obviously Vardy's been dropped to the bench, and maybe he's having to come to the terms. He's not quite the same player he was because it's not been happening for him in front of goal. So
it's kind of weird because I think Iheanacho and Daka have the makings of a decent strike force.
I think they do,
They really do have a chance of a decent strike force there, but it's just not clicking. Adam, now I'm going to ask you about Brendan Rodgers because it feels like he works in cycles, Brendan, and it does tend to fall apart. And when it falls apart, it's a bit spectacular. Are we seeing? Is he right to just complain about the squad and not being backed, or is this partly him kind of running out of ideas and the squad kind of getting tired of him? What do you think?
I think there's two elements to see or watch this scenario right now. So I was lucky enough to interview, obviously, Ryan Hubbard when we did our Premier League Predictor series. And he said last season they definitely needed more players, but they were waiting for a number of players to come back from injury. So obviously that kind of has happened now. So there is an element of they do need some backups. They need some better depth. But equally, like you say, Brendan Rodgers seems like he's lost ideas. You commented about the game against Arsenal where they don't seem to be able to defend from corners.
Yeah,
Ryan Hubbard said they've been doing that for practically most of last season where they every time he turned up at the stadium, they just didn't seem to defend set pieces like they used to. And I think that's probably an element of both sides where the coaching isn't there. Maybe he's trying to embed the same philosophies, but they're tired of it. There's nothing fresh. There's nothing different. And I wonder whether there's an element of they've just had enough. Equally, it does feel like a game of poker between the owners of Leicester City as well as Brendan Rodgers, whereby they're trying to see which one's going to kind of play that bluff hand and kind of let the other one go, because it does feel like they're waiting
it feels like
for
a standoff,
right, to happen right now. It doesn't feel like the owners are going to sack Rodgers, but something has to give, and I reckon this might play out until there's kind of a point where they're kind of in a relegation dogfight and maybe they need to change things. And I was looking at the available managers, and I don't know who realistically they could bring in. I mean, the likes of Rafa Benitez is there, for example. I don't know if he's that good enough. But again, if you're bringing him for a relegation fight, he's probably not too bad.
Sean Dyche,
Sean Dyche, we've got to bring that in. But
I'm gonna come for a hot take, and it hit me today. I think Leicester go back to Celtic and steal their manager again and go for Big Anger, because he is doing a hell of a job at Celtic. They play some great football. I could see him at Leicester, and I could see him doing a hell of a job. So I think Leicester just go back and nick Celtic's manager again. I reckon he could do a great job. They took a risk. It's gone well. Take a risk. I reckon he'd do all right. But with Brighton, I think Brighton fans get sick of everyone. Every time they beat someone, everyone goes, bloody hell, that team's a disaster. What's going on? And nobody ever talks about Brighton. Brighton are...
They're pretty good.
Wow. Like,
They're
each
incredible.
time I watch them, a different player comes up, and I'm like, just blown away. This game, it was obviously McAllister. Now, he's a player that I've seen a few times, and I've been impressed, but he absolutely ran the show against Leicester, dominated that midfield, and he... should have had a hat-trick. Another ridiculous VAR decision to rule out that goal. I couldn't see it myself. But never mind. He scores a free kick and a rocket anyway. Brighton just... anybody... I've run out of superlatives to talk about them. Caicedo,
They're superb.
Welbeck.
They are. Yeah, I mean, the only thing I would say is that depth of players. I think Ben Spalding, even on our Brighton edition, said he wasn't too sure if they had enough players. And I think that will tell. I mean, they did a very similar start last season, didn't they? They really started the campaign really well. But this time it feels like the gel's a bit more. They're kind of fighting for each other. But also, they're just so skillful. Trossard, I mean, he looks like a hell of a player right now.
Yeah.
And I've seen him a few times for Belgium, and I'm kind of reminded he is playing for Brighton. The same for the likes of Gross as well. He'll be in a Germany squad at this rate anyway.
Has he
for
been
sure.
capped for Germany yet?
Yeah, he's capped. He's got a few caps already. So, again,
And then...
the only thing I'd say is up front. I do feel Welbeck's a good player, but they need someone else. And obviously, I was surprised Malpe left. They didn't bring in replacements, but we'll see, you know.
No, I think you're right. Welbeck's going to get you like maybe 8 to 9 goals a season, right? Nothing more than that, really. But the next other player for Brighton I'm going to shout out is, because when he's come on, I've been blown away by him. Kaoru Mitoma, the Japanese player.
Oh, yeah.
He looks like he's going to be an absolute handful when he starts coming into the games. He's properly skillful, just rinses people. I was like, there's another one. They've done it again. How do they keep doing this? So, Brighton, we are giving you your plaudits. It's well deserved, definitely. We're going to, I think it's time to move on to Serie A, but we do have to make an apology maybe to Bournemouth fans. Because we went absolutely two-footed into them in the last episode. And what happened? They came from 2-0 down to beat Forest away and scored 2 beautiful goals. The Solanke overhead kick was a bit mad, and the Billing goal was a rocket. And then Forest gifted them the last one. So, yeah, thoughts on Bournemouth quickly before we go, Andy?
I mean, clearly, Saki South Parker, Scott Parker rather, was a good choice.
There we go.
You know, when you had a manager saying like you're all shit and you get battered 9-0 every week, it's not going to do good for your morale. So I think reality is I think they've probably maybe the season will tell. I still think they're struggling to stay up, but they are keeping their heads above water at the moment.
They are only 1 point behind Fulham, who are having an incredible season, right?
It shows how narrative works, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But ultimately, they've played some really difficult teams. I mean, their opening set of games was, Arsenal, Liverpool, and Man City. I'm not being funny, but most promoted teams are not going to expect particularly much out of that. I think they've done all right. Obviously, the next sort of 10 games or so, they've got teams that are going to be in and around the mid-table. So I think that's where they'll probably expect to pick up some points. And again, I stand by that the World Cup is effectively going to act as a sacking window. I think you'll get to the World Cup and you're going to see 5 or 6 managers get binned off.
Because you get that whole month to work with your squad or with most of your squad.
You're going to literally get a month or two to basically embed in, which you're not going to get in the normal season. So
no, that's a very, very good shout.
Yeah, I genuinely can see about 4 or 5 just going bang, bang, bang off you, off your fuck.
Well, we shall see. We shall see. I think it's time to go to Serie A. Are we ready to discuss Italy? We can only start in one place this weekend.
Of course.
It was a hell of an advertisement for Serie A. What a game. Like, genuinely an absolute spectacle. Couldn't take my eyes off it. It was, of course, Milan 3, Inter 2, and of course, Olivier Giroud bloody scored. I know he didn't get the headlines, but we were talking about him. He's always there. It was a beautiful finish. Adam, I'm going to start with you. What were your first impressions of this game? Who stood out to you the most?
I think obviously the winners, you've got to talk about Milan and the fact that it's purely managed to outwit Inzaghi. And again, it felt like the repeat of the Lazio performance where Milan just didn't know, or Inter Milan, should I say, didn't know what to do in this circumstance. AC Milan, despite the fact that it went a goal behind, after that, they seemed to dominate. Rafael Leao was on fire. He looks incredible. But even in the middle of the park, Tonali seemed to control much of the play as well. And, even though it came to 3-2, you have to say Mike Maignan, again, incredible stops. Some of the saves he pulled off against Çalhanoğlu as well. I mean, just incredible. But Inzaghi, a lot of question marks. I did see the next day that a lot of the hierarchy at Inter Milan were disappointed by that performance. And Correa doesn't turn up again. No. He was preferred over
I jinxed him, definitely.
And, that's it. Dzeko was on fire when he came on. He literally looked like a man content. He was trying to get or rescue a point at least for Inter. But Inter... they're just a shadow of their normal selves at the back. Yeah. I mean, there's so many lapses of concentration or just mistakes. De Vrij was terrible. Bastoni, I don't think he's fit. The same can be said about Milan Skriniar. And
that's the back three right there. That's all of them, right?
And they're pretty much in midfield as well, because that's the kind of tactics they play. You might as well call them midfielders. So
It was difficult to watch. Leao was having a hell of a time. And for that third goal, which is obviously breathtaking goal, the dribbling is unbelievable. The finish is incredible. But both Inter centre-backs kind of take a jump on their heels and just put themselves in the worst position. And he just goes past them. And I think defensively, Inter were all over the place. Yeah. I just want to go one Inter game where I don't have to say Handanovic is the difference. Yeah. And I think in this game, and I was like, right, as the game was going on, I was like, right, the narrative, I cannot just say Handanovic needs to be dropped again. I say it every week. And then he has weak wrists for every single finish. And okay, you could say they're good finishes, but the first one especially, he should get a stronger hand to.
Yeah. But then I think with looking at the first goal, though, I think the defenders should have come out a bit wider.
Yeah.
They were too narrow. So you give the hour basically a free shot on goal, and all right, the keeper was a little bit weak, and I think I've seen a few Handanovic low lights, so I can understand that. But at the same time, you'd expect your centre back to maybe do your bit, put a bit more pressure on him.
I think the defenders feed off him as he feeds off the defenders. Right, it is a unit, but I think in these games it stands out more because Milan, I think, have got the future of goalkeeping. They've got this really innovative, incredible goalkeeper who seems to be not only does he save everything, but there was a moment where Milan had an attacking free kick and Maignan ran up the pitch and was directing their players of where to make the wall. And that's the first time I've ever seen that. A goalkeeper getting involved in attacking free kicks, being like, if you stand there, the goalkeeper can't see the ball. And he feels like this new energy in goal and possibly could go on to be the best goalkeeper in the world. I genuinely think so. And it just makes Handanovic look even worse, and it's just bad for him. It's terrible for him. He's been at the club for 10 years.
I can see Maignan being in the Premier League at some point.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. He's an unbelievable goalkeeper. And the 10 minutes after Dzeko scored that goal, 3-2, it was Maignan that kept Milan in the game. Yeah. He made 2 or 3 saves where I was like, and that is the difference. I'm sorry, Samir, but I need to talk about you again. This guy is making you look terrible. But for Inter, you're right. They were massively disappointing. I think the midfield was kind of lackluster. Barella, I didn't really notice.
Didn't notice him.
And I think there was just a few players that went missing. I think at the moment, Milan have got a kind of mental thing over Inter at the moment. They definitely seem to be more cohesive, more of a team. And that left-hand side, Leao and Teo, is just... not many teams are going to be able to deal with them. I think in the Champions League, that's going to cause every team problems because Leao, if he can get consistent, he could be a proper problem. I don't. Did they stand out to you, Adam, during the game?
I mean, they definitely did, but I was going to say Tio Hernandez. There was in the moment where he could have been sent off for a second yellow card. He was very lucky, and that's why I think until he cuts that out of his game, he's always going to be one of those where he's a risk as a signing, and that's probably why he hasn't landed anywhere else at this moment in time. But yeah, Leao, I'm surprised he didn't actually move in the summer, but this is Serie A's game at the moment because the fact is, as long as he stays to the core and he's a bit more consistent, that's the problem for Leao.
That's the thing
he's just not consistent enough. And until he gets that into his game, then I think there'll be more suitors for him. But yeah, the potential.
And you have to remember, he's still only,
22, 23, I think it is.
He's so young, so young. But yeah, his third goal just alone is an absolute delight. And he's got that in his locker. Incredible performance from him. Great performance from Milan. A great advert for Serie A. Hopefully Inter win it next time. But I think we're seeing in Serie A this year that everyone can beat everyone. And I think it's going to be an exciting Scudetto race because we're going to move on to, we slagged them off and we said maybe Lazio are the team that we should be looking out for and Napoli are struggling. So guess what happens? Lazio 1, Napoli 2. And all of a sudden, we've got egg all over our face. Are Lazio the definition of inconsistent? I cannot predict a single thing they do.
Last season, definitely last season. This season, I thought they turned the cover and they were actually going to start showing us the potential, especially as you think about it, Lazio moved on a number of players. So it wasn't just like one or two. They moved on a number of players. But in this match, to be fair, it was all about Kvara, wasn't it? Kvara's back and that goal, just the move as well. He had a number of moves. He was just insane. Like, again, Napoli just bring back to remind us why they should be considered for this title race as well, to be fair. I mean, they have their moments. Hopefully, they're a bit more consistent than last season. But yeah, again, you can't write anyone off in this league at this early stage. And it seems like if you look at the table right now, we've got Atalanta, who are now top of the table after their win against Monza. We'll talk about, I'm sure. But yeah. Generally, I mean, it's incredible how this is all panning out because no one seems to be getting that kind of run together at the moment. It doesn't matter who you're facing. You could easily lose against them, should I say. So, yeah.
And this is what we've been looking for in Serie A. After the just dominance of Juve, we finally got to a point where there's so many teams that are at a similar level that it's just, I'm loving Serie A at the moment, but we have to go for a Kvara loving again. In my notes, it just says, don't let him cut inside or outside. Don't let him do anything. You don't know what he's going to do. It's insane. He's both-footed, from what I can tell. He has no preference from left foot or right foot. Before the goal or before one of his many shots where he did a kind of roulette and went round, everybody took a shot. Like he hit the crossbar. He was just absolutely everywhere. I'm in love with this guy. I think Napoli have honestly, like, if Eriksen could be the signing of the season in the Premier League, that guy is going to be the signing of the season in Serie A if he continues like this. Lazio, I just can never predict what they're going to do. Every time I seem to get it wrong, I never put them on my accumulator. So I'm like, they're definitely going to lose that. And then they win 4-0. And you're like, okay, right. They're just here to annoy me. Thoughts on Kvara, Lazio or Napoli, Andy?
I mean, Kvara, I've not seen him as much as obviously of you guys, but he's one of those where you just wonder how he slipped under the radar of so many clubs, because you look at the attributes that he's got and what he could bring to a game. You're thinking, well, any team in take your pick out of any of the top teams in Germany, Spain, England, you think they could do with somebody like that, and it wouldn't have cost an arm and a leg before he came over.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much he did cost, actually.
It was like 50. I had in my head.
Yeah, it wasn't a lot. It was about 10 to 15 million. But yeah, there was not a lot in it.
Absolutely, because I think, honestly, he walks into most teams in current form, right? In current form, he walks into most teams, and he's like one of the best wingers on form in the world at the moment. He's unbelievable. So you're right. I do wonder what it was about him that people didn't want to take a risk on him for. But Napoli took that risk, and it's definitely paying off. They they could still do something this year. I'm
Definitely.
excited about them. And the few Napoli supporting friends I have are already getting Cavada tattoos on their arms. Like they are in like 10.
I just looked up the fee, whether it's reliable or not, but it totals up for roughly about £9 million from dealing with
nothing,
two.
is it?
I mean, that's fuck all in today's
How
money,
much was
isn't
Morgan
it?
Gibbs White again?
42.5.
Oh man, I mean, it's just
Oh, that's
levels,
rough.
isn't it?
That is rough. But we need to move on to the next game in Serie A. And this is a team that we did talk about last episode. And we did say you should be keeping an eye on. And it is, of course, Udinese, their stadium absolutely rocking as they humbled Mourinho 4-0. And I have to say, before I let you go off, Adam, I am absolutely gutted that Spurs have signed Destiny Udogie. I'm absolutely gutted. Every time I watch him, I'm more convinced that this guy's going to be one of the best wing backs in the world. I'm just him under Conte is going to be a terrifying prospect. But Adam, what did you make of Udinese and what did you make of Roma?
They just looks like they were continuing the same form that they've been kind of, I suppose, showing in the last few games, because obviously they did lose to AC Milan on the opening day of the season. And since then, they've gone on an unbeaten run. To find themselves now in that top half is remarkable, I think, to be fair. When you look at the quality they've got in their squad, the depth, they are doing a hell of a job right now. Like I say, Deulofeu, again, incredible match. I know he didn't have too much of a hand in any of the goals, so to speak, but that team just seems to be working for each other. I mean, Udogie, I mean, he seems to be just a different caliber of player. And I'm surprised there was not a lot more teams in for him, to be fair. I mean, we talked about Man City, for example, and the fact that they were looking for a left back. He was there.
He's right there.
You know,
He's right
he was
there.
just there.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, didn't happen. Word on Roma, though. Terrible performance. I mean, they just seems really shell shocks. Kastrup, I mean, he was terrible. We knew that before kickoff. Again, letting in.
He's got a rick in him. Yeah.
Terrible. And Mourinho, he said himself, he didn't have any words for that performance. It was a terrible performance. He knew it was going to happen. It's happened. He's rather have it now than it is later in the season when they're chasing for those points. So, again, it's one of those that it's a reset for Roma fans. I think they've got that realization of they're not that perfect right now. There is some like cracks in that squad. Let's see how it goes. But Udinese, incredible.
Incredible. Yeah, I also put in my notes, Roma have finally arrived. Like this is this is the Roma we know. This is the Roma that we're familiar with. Them absolutely shitting the bed at the worst possible moment. Defensively, absolutely atrocious. It seemed like they barely, I think Dybala had one shot where it kind of got close, but apart from that, they offered nothing. Udinese, it's funny looking through their squad because obviously watching the Premier League and Serie A, you're like, oh yeah, I remember that guy. He used to play for Watford. So there's like Pereira had a really good game who was good for half a season in the Premier League. Obviously Deulofeu, like Beto came on. Isaac Success, right? So there's always those, kind of feels like a throwback team, but they're really, really good. And their manager, Sotil, his son plays for Fiorentina. He did a great job in that with Ascoli. He got them from like survived relegation, got them into the playoffs. He seems like a manager that you could probably be keeping an eye on. Just like, have they found another exciting manager? Mainly just managed in the lower league, Serie C, Serie D, then Serie B. Got his big chance, and he seems to be taking it. Udinese looking very, very good. Roma, just classic Roma. And yeah, we've had the question from AFC Finners. All right, mate, is Mourinho doing his third season in his second season again? we shall find out. I feel like this squad love him a little bit more than any of the team that he's been at, since. I feel like they were a bit more, they've got his back. But we'll see. We'll see. It's going to be, they'll be up there. Like we said, it's going to be a tight season this season. Finally, super quickly, before we preview the Champions League, we have to talk about them. The game was terrible. They had one shot after they scored. It's Juventus. They drew 1-1 with Fiorentina. They did nothing. Milik scored again, so that's good.
He did,
That's great to see. but they did nothing after that, and Fiorentina absolutely battered them. What do we think of Juve and Fiorentina? Anybody? I've got nothing to say about this game apart from
I will just say my few pieces on this. Vlahovic, surprised to see him on the bench for this one. Didn't even come on. You know, that was surprising. So whether he didn't fancy it, I don't know. Interesting, though, I saw the memes after the match where it said, you've never seen a top-flight manager like Allegri cheer on a draw more so than this man. I mean, it was incredible. Like, even Juventus fans have no words for their performance, their team. Yeah. They absolutely hate it right now. I mean, we talked to Alfredo a few weeks ago, and there seems to be some kind of sense of optimism. Now it's all drained. It seems to have gone by the wayside, and the longer this continues, I mean, I've said it, I think if they're not in the top 4 by December, I can see him being, you know, sacked. Champions League performances as well. Let's see.
Yeah, but I think the credit in the bank is running out rapidly from those Scudetto and Champions League final appearances. The credit is running out. It's just so dour. It's so unambitious. It's so like... Yeah. It feels like, you know, when people said that like Moyes United was too big for him, he was driving a Ferrari like a Fiat. It kind of feels like Allegri is kind of that similar, just dare to be exciting with this team. You've got some very exciting players there. You've got a front line that can cause a lot of problems. Like, it could be so much nicer, and you're just making it terrible. Exactly. I think you're right. We will see him go sooner or later. Who they go for, who knows? But I think, if they're not in a title race by Christmas, then I think he will be gone, and we'll be waving him off. I think nobody will be particularly sad to see him go. But that is a Serie A review for this week. I think we're done. We need to go to, and I don't know if I made a banner, so I might. Oh, I have. No, it's preview. Preview. There we go. Good. Look how prepared we are. Champions League preview. So, Andy, I'm going to go with you first. A game that stands out to you that you're excited about for this Champions League week?
I mean, I'm not that excited for the Champions League because we're not in it. But I'm joking.
It's not the proper quiz. It's not the proper quiz. The Europa League is where the fun's at.
Yeah, that's a working man's Champions League. And that's what it's going to be called for as long as Arsenal and United are in it. It's a hipster's Champions League. You know, the real Champions League is just too mainstream. It's not that cool. No, optimism aside, I think Celtic versus Real Madrid would be one hell of an atmosphere. And Real Madrid are always a little bit. They can be slow starters sometimes, especially European campaigns. You know, if you throw back to previous campaign where they lost to like FC Sheriff, you know, and over the years they have had the odd group stage game where they've not quite been at the races, usually the first couple of games in. So I think that could be potentially where a shock is in the card. I could also be wrong and Celtic get smashed 6-0, but
that could also definitely happen.
Exactly.
Real Madrid have won all 4 of their games so far this season, so they're coming into it in pretty hot form. Celtic straight off a big derby win, and we've seen them beat Barcelona at Celtic Park before, despite definitely not deserving it. So maybe we can see something. I think that's like a really romantic game that will definitely be worth.
But I think it's good. I think, to be honest, it's going to be a lot of absolute poundings. Like, if it goes as it is, like, it's not really any blockbuster games. But you've got Chelsea versus Dinamo Zagreb. That could get a bit messy. Dortmund and Copenhagen. You know, I've Maccabi Haifa. I don't even know what they're like as a team, to be perfectly honest. But I've literally never seen them play. But you know, I guess they must be okay because it's rare that you see this rainy team in the group stages of European competition. You've also got, it's well worth noting, looking for an underdog to cheer on. You know, previous years we've had Sheriff. Well, this year you've got Victoria Pleasant, or Pleasant, however you pronounce it, in Czech Republic. So that they are
fighting the good fight. Inter, Bayern, and Barcelona is a hell of a group.
Yeah, I mean, I felt sorry for them when they got the draw. It's like that gif of
when you're talking about, you don't have to say it.
We know the one. We know the one. So Adam, any games in the Champions League this week that you are particularly looking forward to?
I think definitely Inter versus Bayern, because
Mm-hmm.
Bayern aren't a team on form, despite what everyone says about Bayern. I think they're a very interesting side, but Nagelsmann hasn't got the harmony yet out of this kind of team yet. It seems
Mm-hmm.
like they're still a team in progress. Another one to look out for is Napoli versus Liverpool, because Kvara, I can see him unleashing some of his wonders on Liverpool's defense. So I'm really excited to see that. But the other one, just for your benefit, Rory, Tottenham versus Marseille, because we're talking about Arsenal B squad, aren't we, rather than Marseille? But
We are.
yeah, it'd be very interesting to see if any ex-Arsenal players, or current Arsenal players, should I say, also score against Spurs. So
All we need
that's the
is
games I'm looking
Sead
forward
Kolasinac to 2-foot Harry Kane, do the world a favour, and then it's fine. Sead Kolasinac, take him out of the game. Come on, you can do it. You can become an Arsenal legend again. Also, Nuno Tavares is definitely going to score an absolute banger, because that's what he does now, apparently. He's not in the Premier League. He
now
just
he's in
scores every
France, he
game
just
for
scores
Marseille.
bangers, yeah.
Love that guy. Love that guy. Yeah, I think the game I was going to talk about was Napoli against Liverpool. There's a bit of like a rivalry there as well. These are two teams that really don't like each other. When they've met each other in Europe in the past, there's been violence, there's been a lot of antagonism. So I think that could be a game with a bit of an edge to it. The only other one I'm going to mention is a bit of a hipster's choice, because, well, it's very on brand.
Yeah.
It's going to be RB Salzburg against Milan. Milan have been very, very good, but Salzburg are definitely a bit of a banana skin. It'll be interesting to see how Milan handle that one. I think that could be a little bit of a tricky one. Cut to Milan 6, Salzburg 0. We shall see. And then, of course, we're going to talk about where the cool kids hang out, and that is the Europa League. We were desperately trying to find some big games.
Yeah,
desperately.
We did,
so, Andy, I'm going to let you talk about how you feel about United taking on Real Sociedad in 2 minutes, because that's about the biggest game I could see.
Yeah, I think it'd be a tough game, to be honest. Like, Spanish opposition have always done really well in the Europa League, in the Europe in general. Look, it's a home game because United, in fact, most teams don't really get much change when they go over to Spain and play a game. So I think it's important that they put out a strong team. And I think also as well, I think it's a good opportunity to get some games for the players that have not been playing at the moment. So I think you'll see a different goalkeeper. Yeah. And to be fair, I think that's a sort of game where if he could play, the 6 group stage games, plays a few cup games, a couple of league games here and there, all of a sudden he's played a dozen solid games, he's back on form again. And because ultimately United are going to need a squad of about 20 to 24 players to all perform well. So I think, I think that's a good squad. I think United have got a strong enough squad to win it as well. Because I think if it gets to the point where they're in the knockout stages, they'll start putting out stronger squads.
Yeah.
And I
kind of weirdly look forward to the group stage in the Europa League, because I know I'm going to see the Arsenal youngsters. I'm like, okay, right.
Yeah, and that's part
of these players are about, right? Let's see what we've got. We've got FC Zurich. I'm hoping to see Fabio Vieira. I'm hoping to see Nketiah get a start. I'm hoping to see some of the younger players. It'll all be good fun as long as we get through the group stage. Then, like you said, we can take it seriously. And because we fell in love with this tournament so much at the end last season, I need to very quickly shout out the Conference League, where there are, I would say, maybe some more intriguing games in this competition than in Europa League. We've got, and we're going to very quickly go through ones that jump out to me. Villarreal taking on Lech Poznan. That could be a banger of a game.
Yeah.
Nice taking on Köln. And the other one that jumped out to me was Hearts, Istanbul, Başakşehir, West Ham, Steaua Bucharest. Some great games in it. I'm going to throw to you, Adam, for some Lech Poznan view. What do we think?
Lech Poznan didn't do so well in the qualifiers when they were trying for the, I think it was the Europa League at the time. They haven't been great this season in the Ekstraklasa, so I'm not expecting too much. Having said that, they beat my team in Poland, Wisła Łódź, over the weekend. They beat them 2-0. Be very interesting to see what team actually decides to turn up, because when they want to on the European nights, they can be a really difficult team, to be fair. But there's not a lot of hope in Poland. They just don't feel like they're equipped for it this time around, unfortunately. It feels like they haven't got a good harmony in that squad at the moment. A lot of backgrounds kind of staff being moved on as well. So their manager, for example, that got them to the first place in the Polish league, he immediately left. due to personal reasons. So that didn't really create a good vibe at the club, unfortunately. So not feeling Lech Poznan, has to be said, but it'd be great to see them do something. That said, I was going to pick up on a few of the other games. So we've got the likes of Nice versus Cologne. I think that'll be a very interesting match, to be fair. Fiorentina as well. They've got a very interesting tie against RFS, who I don't have a clue where they're based, but yeah.
They don't have a badge on Google. That says a lot. Yeah.
But then you've got Hearts versus Istanbul Başakşehir as well. Başakşehir, whatever they're called. So that could be an interesting one. But yeah.
And Nice, we have to remind ourselves, Ross Barkley has just signed for Nice. Yeah. So they've got a properly mad squad of like Aaron Ramsey, Ross Barkley. Who else did they sign? Kasper Schmeichel, right? They've got a bit of a mad team building there. So definitely worth keeping an eye on.
And I feel like if you want to go for really, really hipster choices, you've got our old Moldovan favourites, FC Sheriff, against Armonia, which is from Cyprus. So
is that who Neil Lennon is managing? Is that Ammonia?
He's in Apoel.
It is. Ammonia, FC, that is the one managed by
There
Neil
we
Lennon.
go. We get to see an angry ginger man on the touchline. What more do you want?
Quick shout out FC Vaduz as well. They currently are a Liechtenstein team playing in Swiss second division, and they qualified for the Europa Conference League for the very first time.
How?
Incredible achievement. It's a fantastic story. Read into it if you haven't already done so. I think it's on The Athletic as well. Incredible story. But yeah, first time they've actually qualified for a European competition. And when you look at their squads, they haven't got household names or any experienced players. So yeah, it's an incredible achievement when you consider.
It's going to be great. Yeah, it's going to be great to watch them and see how they do. So guys, we kind of run out of time. There was one topic we wanted to talk about. I'm just really very quickly going to say, if you've not heard the name Stansfield this weekend signing for Exeter on loan from Fulham, then just search it out. This story, it really got me. Like, unfortunately, my mum passed away from cancer, and as I saw this video, I honestly had a tear rolling down my eye. Just a beautiful, beautiful story of his dad died whilst playing for Exeter. Yeah. They retired his number 9 shirt. He's now returned to Exeter and taken on the number 9 shirt. And it's just a beautiful story. Like, guys, we were all talking about it. Like, it's just incredible, right?
Yeah. Beautiful kind of story. I was lucky enough to see Adam Stansfield play for the likes of Yeovil Town, for example, before he actually turned up at Exeter. But they revere him. He's an absolute god. They've got a stand named after him. The fact that he came back. I mean, it was only a few weeks ago, Jay Stansfield was actually playing against Liverpool for Fulham. The fact that he's on loan at Exeter is amazing. So, yeah, lots of love to the Stansfield family.
Yeah,
that was
exactly. Yeah, just super, super proud, happy moment in football that we should all kind of, the things we fell in love with the game for. So I think, guys, on that lovely note, I think we're going to call it a day, and we will see you on Thursday. As always, follow us on Twitter at Italian Anglo Pod, on Instagram at Anglo-Italian Pod, nailed it. Join us on LinkedIn and tell your friends, hit the like button, subscribe, all that stuff. Guys, any final words before we go?
No, absolutely enjoyed it. Thank you, Rory, and thank you to everyone in the comments as well.
Yeah, beautiful. It's been a pleasure. See you all next week.
It was beautiful to have you guys. We'll see you Thursday, Friday. We'll see you Friday morning.
Nice one.
Bye, guys.
Bye.